Our next speaker also is a former colleague of mine in the New Hampshire legislature. I was so fortunate to serve with so many wonderful conservatives. Dan is in his 8th term. He's bettered me by 1 term in the New Hampshire House of Representatives. He's the author of States Have Powers. Isn't that a unique concept? States have powers. You know, I think states are supposed to have all the powers. There's only a very few powers that the federal government's supposed to have. Anyway, Dan has also been married for 36 years. His lovely wife, Lisa, is at many events. She has a great voice. He's a father of 5 children. He also has 5 patents. Now, I don't know if it was a patent for every child, but without any further delay, Dan Itse.
Sunday morning, 9 a.m.
First, if you like what I'm going to say here today, I'd urge you to visit me outside. I do have some books with me. States Have Powers. It's kind of the meat and potatoes of what I'm going to address you with here today. I was sitting here this last week thinking about why am I going to be addressing this group today? I see a lot of friends here. This is the anniversary of the Battle of Lexington and Concord, the second battle of the War for Independence. The first one was here. I'm here today to enlist you in a vision. Now, I didn't create this vision. It's not a new vision. It's about 239 years old. It's the vision of men like John Langdon and John Sullivan and William Plummer and many others. A constitutional republic known as the State of New Hampshire. This republic is the first free government created by a written constitution in the history of the world. It has one stated purpose in its first constitution, January 5th, 1776, to protect the lives and properties of the honest people, inhabitants of this state, from the wicked designs and machinations of evil men. Simply put, to punish injustice. And there is no distinction between wicked men inside or outside of government. 12 years later, this people created a permanent government. What I consider to be have the most elegant Bill of Rights in the world. It is the best statement of American liberty, bar none. It's derived from the Magna Carta, John Locke's second treatise in government, and the English Bill of Rights. Most importantly, it is a Lockean social contract. Now you may ask why I come to you with this vision. Most of you are not in government. You don't have a vote in the legislature. You don't sit on the bench. The reason I come to you is because I know my Constitution and I know who you are. Our Constitution states unequivocally that all power originally resides in the people and is derived from them. Now, sovereignty or independency is the origin of power. Sovereignty, defined in 1781 as the supreme and independent power or authority in government as claimed by a state or community. A sovereign is a group or body of people or state having sovereign authority, having supreme rank, power, or authority. If all power originates in the people and is derived from them, and if all men are born equally free and independent, as our Constitution says, then it is the people who are the sovereigns of our state. This is echoed by Locke in chapter 13. The community perpetually retains a supreme power of saving themselves from attempts and designs of any body, even of their legislators. Now, do you have the power to demand that your neighbor hand over his money to you? Of course not. Well, if you don't have that power, how can you delegate that to the government? And if you can't delegate that to the government, how can the legislature pretend any power to take money from one person and give it to another? There is no difference between tyranny at the point of a gun or a knife and tyranny at the point of a pen, especially when that pen is backed by the power of the sword. Now, who are you? You are the final constitutional authority in this state. Now, I'm going to define two words for you because it's important that you understand them. The first is recur. It means to read, study, and discuss. The second is the word ought. It does not mean should. It is the moral imperative. It is what you must do. Now, the capstone of our Bill of Rights, Article 38 states, quote, a frequent recurrence to the fundamental principles of the Constitution and to justice, moderation, temperance, industry, and frugality, and all the social virtues are indispensably necessary to the preservation of liberty, the blessings of liberty and good government. The people, therefore, ought to have a particular regard to those principles in the selection of their officers and representatives. And they have a right to require of their lawgivers and magistrates an exact and constant conformance to them in the formation and execution of the laws necessary for the good administration of government. Now, the first phrase, you are required to be studying, reading, discussing your Constitution and those principles. If you do not, you will not maintain the blessings of liberty. Second phrase, a voter's guide. You are to use those principles in measuring the men and women you elect to office. And the third, it is not the magistrates, the judges, and the bureaucrats, nor the lawgivers, the legislators, who have the right to enforce the Constitution. It is their duty to obey the Constitution. It is you, the people, who have the right to enforce the Constitution upon those in government. It is not the job of government to make good people. It is the job of the people to make good government. Now, you can't do this unless you have what? How about a copy of your Constitution? And I have a box of pocket constitutions here, given to me by the Secretary of State. No, state constitution. So, any of you who does not have a constitution, please come over and pick one up so that you have one to read, learn, and refer to. It's your duty. Now, why is this important? Did you know that you have a legislature that does not practice the process of redress of grievances as prescribed by our Constitution? To hear the injustices committed by government, that they have in fact delegated that function to the Board of Claims and the judiciary? Do you know that they are unwilling to reclaim their right power to make the laws? Have you ever heard of the non-delegation doctrine? Locke tells us the power of the legislature being derived from the people by a positive voluntary grant, an institution can be no other than what the positive grant conveyed, which being only to make laws and not to make legislators. The legislative can have no power to transfer their authority of making laws and place it in other hands. We have no power to give the executive or the judiciary any power to make rules that affect you, the people. My vision is a government which adheres strictly to the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire, where only the general court and its subordinate legislatures in the counties and towns make laws, where the state organizes the people into a militia for its state's defense against man-made and natural disasters, where the police are peace officers and not law enforcement officers, where the rights of property are uniformly protected, where crimes require an injury, where all crimes will be investigated, where the courts can be trusted to render justice and equity, or the judges are removed. So, do you share that vision? If you do, and you do not have a representative or a senator who knows the Constitution and exhibits those principles that were just put forward, will you run for office? Or if you can't, will you find someone to run for office and support that person with money and, more importantly, with time and effort? And finally, the most important job, will you hold them accountable? That's your job. I ask you again, are you with me? May God bless you all, and may God bless the great state of New Hampshire on this Patriots' Day.
Croc TV.